welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're unpacking something absolutely fascinating. You've probably felt it multiple times before. You even had breakfast this morning. We're talking about that completely uncomfortable, restless feeling you're always trying to escape. You probably just call it boredom, and you probably think it's a huge nuisance, right? But as we'll see as we dive into the source material today, this feeling isn't some glitch in your brain's system. It actually serves a totally vital biological purpose, one that, honestly, you're probably ignoring.
Okay, let's just dive right into this. Have you felt the itch today? You know exactly the one I mean. It's that restless, slightly uncomfortable pull to check your phone for, well, absolutely no reason at all. It's like this subtle tension in your hands, or maybe a weird fog in your head whenever there isn't a glowing screen right in front of your face.
It's just this sheer manic energy of needing to do literally anything except sit still with your own mind. Seriously, it's that bizarre urge to reopen an app you literally just closed maybe 30 seconds ago. Most of us incorrectly label this state as, nothing happening. We kind of think of boredom as just this absence of stimulation. But the research, it tells a completely different story. It is definitely not nothing.
Section 1. Active discomfort. Defining boredom. To figure out what's actually going on in your brain, we need to completely rethink what this feeling is. Let's look at the expert consensus.
Take psychologist John Eastwood, for instance. He's spent years researching this exact feeling. He defines boredom as the uncomfortable feeling of wanting to engage in satisfying activity but being unable to. And wow, this completely reframes the whole concept. It's not some passive state where your brain has just decided to shut off.
See, the big myth here is that boredom is just passive emptiness. But the reality, it is active discomfort. Think of it like a deliberate, highly urgent internal alarm system. It is literally your brain screaming at you that what you are currently doing, or I guess not doing, simply isn't good enough. And your brain evolves that highly specific alarm for a very, very important reason.
Section 2. Survival Tool, our hunter-gatherer origins. To get why this alarm even exists, we have to take a quick trip back in time and look at this through the lens of human evolution. Just imagine our ancient ancestors for a second. If you were a hunter-gatherer doing the exact same repetitive task for hours, gathering berries from the exact same bush or just hanging out in the exact same safe spot for days on end, that comfort actually became a huge liability. Staying perfectly content and doing the exact same thing forever, that was a terrible survival strategy. So boredom was absolutely essential for survival. Anthropologists point out that without this built-in expiration date on staying still, early humans would have just stopped. They'd stop discovering new food sources or new territory. And worse yet, staying in one place way too long meant you became super predictable to predators. Boredom is literally the mechanism that pushed early humans out of the safe and familiar and right into the risk of the unknown. Without it, exploration just wouldn't have been worth the effort. And we can actually see this hardwired right into our biology today. Neuroscientists who study dopamine have found that this ancient restlessness is tied directly to the brain's reward prediction system. Meaning, your brain doesn't just want a reward, it constantly demands new information about where the next reward might be. Repetition, by its very nature, stops delivering new info, so your brain pulls the alarm. And this brilliantly illustrates the connection between our ancestors and us today. Whether it was an ancient human walking the exact same worn path, or you scrolling past half-seen digital content, it is the exact same evolutionary mechanism at play. That urge to check just one more app, that's your ancient exploration circuit firing on all cylinders. It's just aimed at a glowing screen instead of a physical landscape. Section 3. The Modern Trap, Escaping the Itch. Now, here is where the story takes a kind of dark turn. Because we've engineered a modern environment that completely short-circuits this natural biological process. I want to ask you a pretty provocative question. Would you rather sit alone in a room with absolutely nothing to do but think? Or press a button to give yourself a mild electric shock? I know, it sounds totally absurd, right? But psychologist Timothy Wilson actually ran a striking study asking people this exact question. Incredibly, a massive chunk of participants actually chose to shock themselves. Let that sink in for a second. They didn't do it because they enjoyed physical pain, obviously. They did it because sitting with an unfilled mind was, for a lot of them, literally worse than a jolt of electricity. Modern life has built an entire multi-billion-dollar industry around making this ancient feeling disappear the exact second it surfaces. So the crucial point here is this. An entire generation is currently losing its tolerance for a feeling that every single human ancestor had to sit inside regularly, sometimes for hours, just to survive an ordinary day. Because the signal evolved to be uncomfortable, we've trained ourselves to escape it instantly. And guys, we are paying a massive, hidden cost for that constant escape. Section 4. The default mode. Unlocking neuroscience. Let's look at what we're actually losing when we refuse to let boredom run its natural course. See, when you actually allow yourself to sit in that discomfort without immediately grabbing your phone, your brain enters a state of mind wandering. And that activates something called the default mode network. This is a highly specific set of brain regions that only come online to do the heavy lifting when boredom isn't interrupted. And what happens when this network finally fires up? Well, it triggers memory consolidation, complex problem solving, and it forges totally unexpected connections. This is literally the birthplace of creative insight. Researchers point out that some of your best ideas, those brilliant light bulb moments that seem to arrive completely out of nowhere while you're in the shower or on a long walk, they aren't coming out of nowhere. They arrive precisely because, for once, you let the discomfort of boredom run long enough for your brain to actually process information and do something useful with it.
So what does this all mean for our day-to-day lives? Well, when your first instinct is to instantly smother your boredom with a quick notification or a cheap dopamine hit, the cost is monumental. You aren't just avoiding a mildly unpleasant feeling, you are actively interrupting the exact mental process that was designed to trigger genuinely new directions in your life. That restlessness that was supposed to push you toward a new, creative solution, it just gets redirected into 5 minutes of entirely forgettable content.
Section 5. Answering the signal. Reclaiming your brain. So how do we get this vital part of our human operating system back? It really just starts with a simple shift in mindset. The next time that restless, itchy discomfort shows up and your hand automatically reaches for your phone, I want you to just pause for a second. Remember the source material we've covered in this explainer today. That feeling? It's not a malfunction. Actually, scratch that. It's not just not a malfunction. It is one of the oldest, most powerful signals our species ever developed to push us into everything worth discovering. Your ancient exploration signal is still firing correctly, and it's asking you the exact same question it always has. The question isn't, how do I make this feeling go away? The real question is, what are you actually being pushed toward if you're just willing to sit inside the discomfort long enough to find out? It's definitely something to think about the next time you feel the itch. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll see you next time.